Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of the Financial Insight Show, where I'm sitting down with the Chief Executive Officer from Stanbic Bank Zambia, Mr. Mwindwa Siakalima. Mwindwa, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mwelwa.
Mwindwa, it's always a pleasure. Mwindwa, we are at the InterContinental Hotel where the banking community is hosting a very, very important annual event. The Banking and Finance Conference that's being held this year has brought about a lot of a lot of the stakeholders in the banking sector, and you being one of them, obviously is quite significant. Tell us a little bit about what this year's particular theme means to your bank.
Thank you very much, and we are very glad to have been part of it. I think it's all about driving growth for the country. We're looking at in terms of how we interpreted the theme is how do you as a financial institution be present in the future, and how do you leverage technology, and how does that then trickle down to how convenient the services that you're providing are to the client. So in terms of interpretation is how do we drive the growth of the economy, and in that how do we also ensure that there's the benefits that we as financial institutions are actually obtaining from this. How do we make sure that there's that leveraging point to make sure that they are passed on to the client? So convenience is one, but also just the coverage, the reach, meaning that with the power of technology, there's a big opportunity here, that we basically then have a much wider pool of customers that we can reach. And using technology, I think there's a lot of synergies that we can have as a financial institution, but together as an association, which is basically a collective of banks, non-banking financial institutions. How do we then help drive Zambia's growth? So I think a very good and apt theme that has actually been couched for this conference today.
Absolutely, and obviously this particular theme comes on the back of the country and even the world dealing with issues of COVID subsiding for the most part. In this morning you actually gave a presentation around how the bank positioned itself, how it's been able to deal, but then also the critical things that have come out. Are you able to tell us a little bit about the presentation that you gave this morning, and what were some of your key takeaways?
Yes, so the key takeaways are as follows. So definitely, I think pre-COVID, communication and how we then interacted as individuals, even with our customers, was a little bit different. So at this point in time, I can have members of staff sitting elsewhere, and we're able to communicate effectively, cost efficiently, in terms of whatever we would like to do as an organization. So there's productivity that has been brought about with the technology that we have. Definitely the most popular ones will be things like your Microsoft Teams, things that we never really used to the extent that we do now. And essentially that then allows for that productivity to happen even if somebody is traveling. So the good thing around that is there's a efficiency that comes out of the communication with our clients. Out of that, there's also efficiency that comes out when you are dealing with internal discussions that happen there. So in addition to that, there's also a trust level that has come out of that between and among teams, that if someone is not present in the room, they are indeed working. And that's a cultural thing, and we talk about it being presence versus productivity. So productivity is an important one. The other thing that has happened is that you've got your AI type discussion that has come about, big data, a lot of things that came out of that COVID period actually is, if you then trace back to say pre-2019, not a lot of companies or banks would talk about a digital loan. So as Stanbic, we actually have a digital loan that has actually been running for some time, where I can, in the comfort of my home, be able to draw down on a facility. It's pre-scored, but all that is basically done using technology. And technology is actually a big driver to a lot of things that we do. The other thing that we need to remember, obviously, is as a result of what's happening, in the world. There's a lot of when I say what's happening in the world, is things like cost escalations and things like that. There's a lot of awareness that we need to have as a financial fraternity, awareness of how things, geopolitical things that are happening, would then impact us here. I think the takeaway there is, if there's, what is called tightening monetary policy around the world, how do we navigate that as financial institutions, and how do we then also ensure that we as financial institutions listen to client preferences is another. Client preferences will actually ensure that we do the right thing by them and for them. If you then don't listen to what the customer is asking for, which is another aspect of saying, how do we then incorporate how a Gen Z or Generation Y thinks into our future strategies as financial institutions. So a lot of things that came out of that conference basically talk to us as financial institutions, listening more, being there for our clients, as well as ensuring that we get our strategies to align with what the market, which is the customer, is then demanding for. Another point I'd add there is around climate change. So from a climate change perspective, we've I think experienced a very hot October and November. So the summer this year has actually been very hot. Rains only came in a few days ago. I think what's important for us is what impact do we have on the environment as institutions, and how can we then help alleviate that sort of impact going forward. So as a bank, I think something that we've taken very seriously, and looking at how do we then at the source of the Zambezi River plant trees. It's not just about planting trees, but it's also ensuring that what we do internally, saving power, water, and things like that is also an important thing, because these are things that we need to start saving and thinking about now in terms of how we then behave from internally as employees, but also how we engage with our clients on things like ESG risks. So a key point that also came out in there is we have technology as the the lifeline to what we are doing now, but we also need to be conscious, right, in terms of how what we are doing then impacts the environment. The other thing I was going to talk about was looking at from a growth perspective. You are not growing in a vacuum, and by that I mean from an operating environment perspective. There are things that have happened post-COVID. So definitely I think there's a lot of emphasis around, from a country perspective, to deal with the debt discussion. So that debt discussion, we are aware that from an official creditor committee perspective, which is a 6.3 billion, lots of good progress there. There's a Eurobond discussion that's currently unfolding of about 3 billion. We hope that there's an agreement that comes up in the coming months. It's important that that is also resolved, so that the entire 13-14 billion is restructured, and we basically then get to seeing what happens post that. In the meantime, I think there's a lot of discussions that is happening around collaborations. So big projects in the infrastructure perspective. If you talk about infrastructure, those are big ticket items that, as institutions, then we need to more or less see how we together with government, partner to be able to deliver some of the things that are needed for the growth of the economy. So in a nutshell, really, that is the sort of summary that I would have for you for today's conference.
Absolutely. And, we've obviously, been big followers of the bank, and, your participation in this year's event is obviously very, very significant. So maybe just as a final thought, we had the minister obviously give some of his comments, and obviously some of them addressed about collaboration, which is something that you touch on regarding the MNOs as well as the banks. And then there was also a panel discussion around safety for women, in financial circles. What would your final thoughts be around those two important aspects that were covered this morning?
Indeed. I'll start off with the discussion around partnerships. So the partnerships one is a key one. And it's not just partnerships with MNOs, but it also includes the fintechs that are coming through. So there's a lot of synergies that we can derive from these relationships, and which currently are actually happening from a Stanbic standpoint. And it's important to recognize the partners that we have in what we do. So fintechs and MNOs are not seen as competition. We actually collaborate to ensure that the end customer actually has the convenience and the benefit, and be able to access things 24/7 and is 24/7 and in a secure manner. The security around that is important. Coming to the women side of things, we have a product basically under the umbrella of our Anakazi banking, which then deals with women in banking and women who are our customers. So basically, I think around that is looking at things like financial literacy, making sure that we connect them, and in terms of partnering with other businesses, because that's important. I think that to be a business person or a woman, even men anyway, you definitely need people that you can learn from. So that's important in terms of financial education, but also linkages. Financing is also one of the things that we do under that umbrella. So very important that we that was spoken about, and I think focusing on women is really the right way to go as well, because then we know we basically are supporting a household. I think it's well told that when you support a woman, you're supporting a household.
Absolutely. Mwindwa, thank you so much for joining us on this special episode. And to our viewers, continue to follow all the content. This particular interview has been brought to you by BGS, who are partners for Media Room at the Banking and Finance Conference 2023. Thank you very much, Mwindwa.
Thank you very much, Mwelwa.